California has the nation's biggest prison population, so it also has a huge population of former prisoners re-entering or trying to re-enter society. We'll talk about the challenges today on Insight.
Hi, my name is J.J. Anderson. I'm Director of Community Programs for the District Attorney's Office in San Diego. I was working in a tire shop for Costco, and my buddy Joey Bananas from New York said, hey, there's a position at a detox center, at a detox, and you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, and the position didn't pay any more, but I was able to work with people that I wanted to work with, you know, and it was the Liberated Reception Center, which means that those people are the people that the police bring in, and they're drunk in the streets, and you have to take care of them for 48 hours, and once they sober up, you can let them go. And I'm gonna tell you, that job right there taught me so much patience, you know, and I went from there to a short-term residential facility, and I taught treatment, and that taught me how to deliver curriculum. And from there, I guess someone noticed me, and a lady asked me to run her drug rehab, and I became a program director for a long-term drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. And so I got to set the whole curriculum and the whole structure for 80 men and 15 women. And I did that for about 4 years. Went back to school, got my addiction certification, my counseling certifications, and just kept working. And one day, these two police officers came to my facility and said, hey, you know, we want to do this new process where we get people out of jail, we put them in treatment, and then we have a treatment program run by the courts. It's going to be called drug court. And I was like, that made perfect sense to me. And you know, I was like, yeah, we'll give you some of the beds for these people, you get them out of jail, and then they go back to court and report to the judge. And I met this whole different population of people. I met a judge, and I met these police officers, and they respected my treatment recommendations, and we just worked well together. And eventually they needed a treatment expert within the courts. And the judge asked me to be that person. And I was scared to death to go and work in the court system. But I just did it. That judge had run for DA and won. And when she won, she gave me a call and said, hey, we need you over the DA's office to help us to develop programs to keep people out of prison and to prevent young people from going to prison and to intervene. And I was like, the DA's office? She's like, yeah, you owe me one. And I said, okay. And I came over to the district attorney's office, and when I first got here, it was just a desk and her and my ideas. That's all we had. There was nothing here. And today, I have a staff of 6 people. I have my own department. We've developed amazing programs, and we're in the community doing good work. I had a rough childhood, you know. I was real sensitive as a little boy. And my real father was a Vietnam veteran. And, you know, I'm sure he had some trauma. And my mother, he was younger than my mom. And my mother was a well-educated woman, a beautiful woman. And I'm sure he was pretty insecure about who she was, you know. And there was a lot of turbulence in my house, and I can remember some domestic violence, and so I was a sensitive kid who grew up in a really, a turbulent household initially.
My name is Keith Norman. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. My childhood, it was pretty fun, actually. I grew up with all my siblings. There were 7 of us. My mother, she was my father. I lost my father at the age of 5, and my mother, she was there, basically stern, made us go to church. Had to go to church till you were 16, and then you were able to go ahead and do what you want to do.
My name is Don Andres Torrio Jr. I'm born in Brooklyn, New York, but I'm raised out here in San Diego. My childhood was pretty rough, actually. My mom and dad are both ex-convicts and ex-dope fiends. I didn't meet my dad till I was about 13. My mom's got a mental disorder, so I grew up without parents.
First time I was introduced to drugs, I was probably 10 years old. I'm going to be totally honest with you. My mom was dating a man when I was a little bit younger than that, I can remember. And I was 5 years old, and she was dating a guy, and I can remember her being really, really upset because this guy they were supposed to go on a date, and he didn't show up. And you know, my mom was, when you're a kid, your mom's your higher power, your mom's your God. So everything she felt, I felt. And I can remember him hearing his car drive up really fast and his tires barking, and she was mad, and she went out into the bedroom, and he came into the house, staggered into the house, and sat next to the couch next to me and pulled out a half pint of whiskey out of his back pocket, and he let me drink some of that whiskey. And I remember right at that time, for that split second, I didn't care how she felt for the first time. And I think I was 5 years old, and I never forgot that feeling. So what it did for me, even the first time I was able, to have a drink, was to separate me from what was going on.
When my dad paroled from prison, I did my first line of coke with my father. 13. Progressively got more and more. I went to a public high school, which was kind of like my first public school experience, and just started interacting with more people, slowly developing in my drug use, just the party drugs, the ecstasy and the hallucinogens and the whole out-of-body experience. And before I know it, I'm 18 and I'm a strung-out heroin addict. I'm using needles, smoking meth, shooting meth, and then it got to the point where if it didn't dissolve, I wasn't involved. If I couldn't slam it, I wouldn't even mess with it.
When I was a juvenile, I got into a lot of trouble, and I was in a lot of institutions because of my addiction. It was very difficult, and it was embarrassing. It was hard, and it was humbling. Because, a lot of times as a young person, I think I'm this person. I think I'm this, I'm bad, But then when you get around really bad people, really bad dudes, and you realize, that you're not as bad as you thought you were.
I went to county jail for sales because I started selling marijuana in order to continue my use. And I went to jail for that like 3 or 4 times. And then I started selling crack cocaine to make more money. And during that process, I started traveling to California to sell more cocaine and getting involved with other people who done the same thing. And during that transportation and delivery process, I caught a life sentence.
I was 26 when I finally got clean. So, that's, a good almost 10 years later. And so that's a lot of using, a lot of, street violence. What really got me there, though, is that I had a baby to take care of, and that made me think. I can remember my baby's mom at the time. She was like, you know, JJ, I can't take care, because the denial of addiction is very strong, you know, and it makes a person think that they're someone they're not. And so I thought that I was a guy that I used to be, and I didn't realize when I was taking care of everybody, and I didn't realize that everyone was taking care of me. And when she was getting ready to have my child, she was like, I can't take care of you and the baby too. And I was like, what are you talking, you know, and that just something hit me when she said that, like, you're taking care of me? And my brain told me that I was taking care of her. So it wasn't about really the street violence and all those things. It was, you know, more about my family and me wanting something different in my life.
I turned 28 today, and this morning I honestly stood up and I said, I'm lucky that I made it to this birthday, because the last 5 years have been extremely scary. I've ended up in the hospital a lot for overdoses. Just seeing the look on my mom's face, waking up in the hospital, she's covered in tears, you know, thinking like, man, is he not going to wake up this time? Just that, oh, it's really hard to explain, but it's anguish, you know, it's despair. I can't describe it. You feel horrible.
This program has helped me get my ID, my social security card, my birth certificate. They help me basically with everything that I need to get out there and get a job. You know, they give me rides to appointments and basically everything I need. And I feel comfortable going back into society because I know that I have help.
For me, the biggest tool is honesty. Now, I mean that in a sense that in the street I'm actually a pretty honest person, brutally honest type, but I've never been honest with myself. I've never owned my own stuff. I've always blamed, my childhood or lack of discipline. I've never had parents. I put myself around the wrong people, but the commonality in that statement is I at the beginning of that statement.
My thing is to do something physical, mental, and spiritual for yourself each day. And so I get up, and the first thing I do is pray. And the second thing I do is go to the gym. And the third thing I do is come to work. You know, I live a structured life, you know, and I have a good life. And, you know, I just keep it physically, mentally, and spiritually focused.